Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And today I have a special guest and her name is Myla. How are you?
Hi, I'm Mylas. Thank you so much for having me, Cesar.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today and cannot wait to get to know you and get to hear more things that you can share with our audience.
Yes, that is amazing. It's honestly a dream come true. I didn't realize I had this dream until I'm here right now. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's, it's funny. You're on the other side of the table right today, so which is pretty awesome. You normally have people on your show getting interviewed by you, and right now we're gonna flip that around. So that should be pretty exciting.
Yes, it is. I'm in the hot seat, so please be graceful, people, with me. Okay, don't go too harsh on me.
Yeah, definitely. So let me give the listeners a little bit of your background so they can get to know you. You are a real estate agent licensed in the state of Oregon. You a homeschool mom of 3 kids, and you created the course for parents, Homeschool from the Heart. And you are also a podcaster. That's pretty awesome. So I definitely want to know about all of those journeys. But before we get to that, I want to know about you and your background. And let's tap into your history. Where were you born originally? And then how was it growing up as a kid?
Okay, so I am from Chicago. Chicago, please stand up. Yes.
Yeah.
Chicago, born and raised. If you only look at statistics on Chicago, that is where a lot of things happen. But it was a very fun childhood for me. When you're a kid, you don't recognize all those things. I loved growing up in Chicago. I am currently in Portland, and there's certain things you miss about it. So Chicago, as far as childhood, I learned a lot of things. I stayed in a predominantly Black area, but I went to predominantly multicultural schools or predominantly white schools. So you quickly learn how to navigate different worlds. And when you grow up that way, some people view it as you're becoming a different person. I just view it as you're learning to gather perspective, and you're learning how to take advantage of different opportunities. So that was mostly my childhood. I am one of 5 kids, which it sounds like a lot nowadays, but that was like our norm. I have over 100 and something family members just in Chicago.
Wow.
Family members in the U.S. Yes, we're like a huge family.
Yeah.
And I moved to Portland early 20s. So that was a huge thing for me. I thought I would like, when you're born in Chicago, you want to live and die there. That's kind of, it's like being a Chicago Cubs fan. It's like you don't choose another team, even when they're losing.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah, so that's it was really hard for me to move.
Yeah, no, I bet. And were there any major challenges that you encountered as you were growing up in your childhood or even in your teens or anything like that? Anything major that you said, if you look back now, it's like it was something huge you had to overcome, or not necessarily?
Well, I think I was different. I noticed like that a lot of the kids I was around, they didn't like to read as much, or they weren't interested in writing or being super creative. My immediate family was, but when we would go and, different parts of our family, that wasn't the life that they were into, right? So I realized that was different. The way I spoke around my, neighborhood or immediate neighbors, they found that to be like a way to make fun of me. So I found that was like, it was different. And then when I would go to school, I noticed that, there was never really a place to fit in. I was okay not fitting in, but I think sometimes you just want people to like be into the things you're into. So I loved to read as a kid. And for me, whenever I would feel like a lot of rejection, because in both worlds I was rejected, right? I was, you know, in the schools I went to, there were a lot of well-off kids, and I wasn't a well-off kid, right? I was
Mm.
very aware of that, but I was very grateful for what I had, right? But then in my neighborhood, I was considered well off, but I was well aware that I was not, right?
Mm.
So it was constantly dealing with those bouts of rejection. And I was a latchkey kid. So you didn't really, my parents worked very hard for us, but you didn't really have opportunities to express or understand what you're experiencing. So I would say that I constantly had a battle of dealing with like rejection and not really, it's almost like trying on a shoe and it's not the right fit, but you want that shoe, but you don't know how to make it work. So I was constantly doing that, but I found that through writing and reading that I would relieve those bouts of anxiety or rejection or little bouts of like seasonal bouts of depression related to just constantly being in environments where you were not accepted, right? Or where your way of doing something was not that way. So I would say that would be something um, major that was like a constant, but something that was also major was um, when I always went to school with my older brother, and it was like when he went off to college, that was the first time I was still in high school. We were in the same high school where I had to learn to like have my own voice.
Mm.
And I was a very vocal person. So when you're vocal, you feel like you already have your own voice. And that was the first time I realized I didn't know what I wanted to express. I was just working on just dealing with these two worlds or the different worlds you're in. I didn't know what my voice was.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even now, I mean, when you think about it, whether you're in your younger years or even as an adult, we often see a lot of that rejection or even not being able to speak your voice or really express yourself in multiple different ways, right? And I think that that's one thing that it will keep us from our true potential, and even so, just kind of moving forward or doing things in our lives, right? Because we constantly get the rejection, we constantly don't have the ability to speak up or give our opinion, right? And so the fact that you were able to find something, whether it was reading in this case, right, to help you through that, what are some other things that you can probably mention to people that might be going through something similar, where they constantly see that rejection, whether it's at work, whether it's maybe even to that extent it also becomes the bullying, right? And there's
Right.
definitely bullying in schools, there's also bullying in work or different aspects of that, and not having that voice. Like what other advice would you give?
Well, I think the biggest key that I learned from all of this is, I would say if I bullet pointed it, it would be my younger self understood what my adult self knew and needed to know. So
Mm.
as a kid, I felt like I didn't know that writing or journaling or reading had really any therapeutic value at all. Just as a kid, I knew I'm stressed. I don't feel stressed when I read. I'm scared. I don't feel scared when I'm writing.
Mm.
I'm, I feel less than. I feel empowered when I journal. And so it became this cycle of me just trying to relieve those emotions. So I think if there's something that is healthy for you, right? There are dangerous things, like I would feel good, when I ate something super fatty and salty. I'm saying remove that, but really think about like those instincts. And so I learned to trust that younger version of myself, because when you are constantly devalued, you assume that that is the only position you can be in, is to be less than or devalue. But at some point you have to change the story. And through my journaling and reading, I began to get new ideas in and then new ideas out, so that it was like a filtering system for me. I didn't value that until I actually just discovered this a couple of weeks ago. It was like, wait a minute, what have I been doing all my life that's really helped me? Reading, writing, reflecting, repeating. So I would say if there's something you do like drawing, you know, I know some people play an instrument, spend time doing that. That is something that to me that is a lifeline. That's very important. And even now, reading, writing, journaling are part of my daily habits. And if I go too long without it, it actually feels like, I mean, I feel very naked. So I feel like it's something that can make you feel like you have access to control it. I think the second part, and this goes more to reading, is get perspective. Because if you are not seeing yourself, I always try to look at myself as a dot in the middle of a circle, and you just want to walk all the way around that. So instead of me just assuming that the rejection is to hurt me or to tear me down, I start to say, well, is it true? And I walk around it all the way. And then I work on, if it's true, what was true about it? And can I change it? And if so, when? So then I kind of schedule changes. Like even on my podcast, I get a lot of great feedback and I get a lot of, hey, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. But you can't always implement it right away. So be patient with yourself. Then the other part is, I call it take the trash out on Wednesday, meaning if it's not true or if it's not beneficial or it doesn't edify you, like think of you as a seed and it's not going to grow that seed and it's a weed that's going to steal moisture from you. Maybe you're not mature enough to handle that concept yet. Sometimes we have to grow into things. Then I just empty it with the trash on Wednesday. I put it in the trash, I take it out and I leave it there. And if it's good for you, you're going to hear it again, right? It's not going to be the only time. And someone that may be a better teacher or a master at that is going to come and tell you. So I think the biggest thing is to look at rejection as a feedback tunnel, right? You're going to just filter out if it's true or not, and then what to do with it. And I make it less personal. And I think the third thing is give yourself some good truth about yourself. So something we do as a family is we spend every day, you know, let's just say that every day that's our goal, but let's say realistically it's 5 times a week, where we say something we like about ourselves and we say something we like about other people, and we start our day that way. And that really helps you to like remember, even if you're annoyed with your sibling or your friend or whatever, but you start there, it'll change the story. So I think giving yourself access to be honest is like really the foundation. And I found this pattern through my journaling, where I would see, oh, you're really mad this day. And I would read that. And then, you know, a week later, you seem less mad. And then 2 weeks later, you're like on to something else. And I noticed, oh, I have a pattern of getting over this. So just allow yourself to do that. Like you don't have to hold on to it, right?
Right.
And those things are not true about you. And some things are true. Like I have a big head. It's not going to change. And I'm not going to get surgery for it. I just have to lean into that and use, like, is that a benefit? I'm not sure, right? Maybe I have more brain power. I don't know.
That's probably what it is, right? Accept it and just say you're good, right? I mean, no, that's awesome.
Because I can't do anything about it. But here's the thing that I think that's really important that we actually don't learn until we're adults is if you're younger or you have access to teaching someone this when they're young, do so and practice it yourself. Is you actually have to learn to feel good about yourself by yourself without no outside input. And so that journaling process, I didn't know that at the time. I was too young to understand that. But that was a tool of me learning to feel better about myself on my own. I was funneling out, and each rep made me stronger and more confident in who I was. And even now I get tons of rejection, but I'm able to filter it and just say, okay, that is helpful. You didn't mean that, or you definitely meant that. Maybe you're not the best fit in being close vicinity to me until you work through that. Because, you know, people that are hurt, they don't have the tools to really help you, right? Imagine a surgeon that just got out of surgery. He really isn't much of a good surgeon at that point. He has to heal first. Yeah. So that's kind of like, I think that would be most helpful is learn to feel good about yourself without social media, without other people, because then you will respect the feedback as feedback, not as self-esteem for you.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's actually a couple of things that I want to just reinforce, and for our listeners and viewers, if you didn't write this down, definitely do it. I love the fact that reading, you know, try to embrace that or embody that reading, the writing, the reflecting, the journaling, all of that. Those are actually really good tips. And I love the journaling where you have these thoughts in your head, and sometimes we do this as people. We tend to keep all of these negative thoughts in our head, both positive and negative, right, period, and we just tend to keep them inside, and we don't do anything about it. And so I love the fact that you have to release that from your body, from your head into a piece of paper, and whatever is a negative thought, put it in this negative journal. And I like what you said, throw it with the trash on Wednesday, or whenever is your trash day, just throw it out, right? I really like that, because that's exactly what you want to do. It's not serving you any purpose, right? So just get rid of it. I heard other people, they'll do like a negative journal or whatever, it doesn't serve them, and then they'll burn that at the end of the week or whatever the case may be.
Ooh.
Yeah. So again, there's different practices, and definitely, I love, throw with the trash. Definitely love that. But again, it goes back to that, right? You definitely want to be able to do that. So if you didn't pay attention, make sure you tap into that and utilize that, because that's definitely really, really good. So those are really good tips. Now, the other thing you were talking about too is when we talk about the people, or I want to get your opinion on this, right? How critical is it to have people that might be in a better state of mind, like the average five, what they consider to be the average five? What is your take on that?
So, okay, at first I didn't believe that, right? Because I saw myself overcome that when I was not in that environment. I was never in an environment of acceptance, right?
Mm.
Then I kind of believed it a little bit, because I thought, well, why don't I just try to be around people that want to win? Maybe they don't win, right? But they at least just want to win, right? And so that kind of fueled me a little bit. Now with social media, because I haven't been on social media for years, like 8+ years, right? I'm just on social media for the last 4, I don't know, weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, sometime around COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been networking with people that all want to win and that are winning. It's like my mind has multiplied. My belief has multiplied. My confidence, which I wasn't trying to be more confident, has multiplied. My response to failure, I feel like I have a stronger rep. Like, I definitely naturally just will be like, oh, okay, I failed at that. What do I need to do? But I feel more like, oh, I love that you're telling me that sucks, because now I can do something about it. Like, I wouldn't have known that. And it really is empowering. And before, I will say, I want to say 2 things is, it's okay if you don't have that, right? Some people just don't have that, right? When I didn't have physical or actual voices or people to connect with, I found it in books. I read and read and read to learn, to like figure out that something that I'm feeling inside exists. And so that was super helpful for me. If you can't connect with someone, or you're not sure how to network, or you're just not even there, right? Read it in a book or a podcast. That in itself to me is super motivational and stretching your mind and just like trying to understand. But for me now, like, I would say once I started real estate, there was a shift in the kind of, mindset or environment or 5 people that I was around. And that kind of like was like a rocket ship. It'll propel you forward, because it's like, it's go, 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 go. And you'll see things happen so fast that you'll be like, whoa, I didn't know it could happen that fast. I thought that would take me a year or 6 months. You're like, it only took a month, or it only took 2 weeks. You're like, you start to see, and it creates a new pattern of belief for you, right? The other thing, though, is that it actually gives you, uh, so I believe confidence is kind of like that 90-day probationary period, right? So you're like, you want to get the job, you want to keep the job, but not until you make it past that 90 days do you feel like super good about it. So I think that is what being around the 5 people are. It's like, what it shows you is like, you're not confident at first, you're still learning, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got this. I'm in. I can do this. So I think it's beneficial. I really do. And I'm actually learning. So as you're asking this, I'm learning the benefits of that. Just from seeing, like, talking to the people or podcasting during Corona,
Mm-hmm.
you could literally go to a dark place, man. Like
Yeah.
when, and so it's actually kept me like super motivated, just to hear how other people are tackling their business. They're not hopeless. They're not giving up, because you can read the news and go down a spiral.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure. There's a lot of negative programs out, especially around these times when you have the news, you have even the radio. Like there's a lot of things that I myself decided to just kind of get rid of just because of all of those negative thoughts that come through, right? Um, Talking about your real estate, like, did you ever had the idea of becoming a real estate agent, or how did that come into play? I want to know that.
It was like on a whim, which sounds horrible to say, but I do a lot of things on a whim, right?
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm starting to learn to trust myself, because I think sometimes we make the pattern to success or the road to success so complicated. But as you learn to trust yourself, your instincts. So one of my friends was in real estate, and she just kept reporting back to me like, you would be really good at this. Every time I do this, I think of you. My client did this. That's something, and I responded. The way I responded was like this. And she just kept hammering it into me. And then she was like, hey, why don't you get your license? And I literally had just had my third kid.
Mm.
So I was like, no, like I just had surgery. No. Right. And then I just decided, I was like, you know what? So what I did was I researched like I've already always been on the path of how to build wealth for my family, because when you grow up and you experience certain, lack, or just you see how money is dealt with, and you realize that if I could provide more wealth, or even if it's just more opportunities that you can overcome. So I already knew that real estate was part of that, but I didn't really think of getting my license. So when I looked up how to become, wealthy, it's you own like two of the top things are wealth building through real estate and through entrepreneurship. And that was both. So at first I was just getting my license to build my own portfolio. And that was really where I was going. And then I started interviewing at agencies, and I fell in love with all the possibilities and with all the flexibility, because I was already homeschooling. And I thought, whoa, maybe I'm short selling myself. Get it? Short selling. So,
Yeah, short selling. Yeah, definitely.
so I was like, maybe I'm short selling myself. So I just went with it. I interviewed at agencies. I went with it. And to be honest, for me, every personality is different, right? We all have different instincts, and we have to respect that. But for me, it was just step by step learning and making a one decision. And then I think my driving force was that I was thinking in my head, I just keep having images of people getting to their 60s and 70s and them not knowing that small decisions destroyed their wealth, not having the tools. And so for me, I thought, I would love to share these tools with them to help them know that this remodel is maybe not the best way to spend your money if you only have this much, right? Maybe we can find other ways to make you feel like you have a remodel. So that was fascinating for me, or just giving them, advice on who's the right lender to work with and for your scenario. So that's kind of where the dreaming started for me. But it really was like, I started homeschooling on a whim, right? It was a total
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
So it wasn't well thought out. I would love to tell you everything I do is super well thought out, but it really
Yeah.
isn't. It's just I am curious, and I learn and I discover, and I just allow that to happen.
Yeah, and one thing that's good about that though is like even if it just happens, out of the nowhere, right? The fact that you stepped into that and then you start, again, like you said, you kind of start studying, you're educating yourself, you're learning the ins and the outs, and that's I think what's definitely, and not probably, but that's definitely a huge tool and upper hand that even people that might, not be preparing themselves to do it, is that when you do step into that zone, into that area, just go at it and as if you were the best person ever, right? Like study, learn it, just be dedicated to it, because you already stepped into that zone. What happens is sometimes people jump into something, and because they're afraid, the fear of not succeeding, the fear of not knowing what to do, the fear that they never done it, the fear that they just stumble by mistake into that, then they pretty much don't continue to follow through, right? And so I think like you that you stepped into that, which is pretty awesome. Now I know for a fact that me as an entrepreneur, that's not an easy thing to do. Like it's not easy to step into being an agent or coming up with your own courses or doing any of that stuff, right? I know it's not. So how do you deal with that? Or what is your experience with that?
Well, I would tell you that usually I step into something I get super excited and curious, and then I learn about it. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of work. But then I'm just encouraging people to understand how they operate. I notice a light switch turns on for me, just a switch. And then I'm ready to go to work. And I think, okay, it's going to take me, this, like for podcasting, it was like, hey, if you make one podcast a week, everyone seems to grow between month 12 and month 24. So that's 52 podcasts. Can you force your learning curve so that's kind of how I would attack it. So like for my course, I just thought, okay, is it going to be the best course in the world? Because I have, I believe you become an expert when you spend that 10,000 hours in something. No, I'm not an expert at making courses, but I am an expert at teaching you how to homeschool because I've spent 10,000 hours in that. So that gave me the confidence to say, I'm going to do this. And for real estate, once I realized it was that much work, I realized I loved the idea of helping people, being a knowledge broker, helping people build wealth for their families, and not getting to age 65 saying, wow, I have enough. If someone has to take care of me, I have the means to help them do that. And whether you're physically there or not, you're not worried. I thought, wouldn't that be nice? So that was just my motivation. And usually if I value something, I'll just figure out, how can I add this value to my life? What does that look like if I add it every month? What does it look like if I add it this week? What does it look like if I add it for the day? And so then my it's like a puzzle piece. You just kind of form a new piece that can fit in there. And it's just constantly asking that question, okay, you're doing real estate now. How can you do that in homeschool? And it's like a hamster wheel. It keeps spinning. And then I just keep figuring out what that looks like. But reflection is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So I take, every week I'm like, okay, did that feel good for homeschool? Did that feel good for my clients? What about me? Did I feel good? Like, I know that putting out this many episodes that I'm going to have, what I'm doing is I'm multiplying my errors because you can see them, but I'm also multiplying my effort, which means I'm more drained. So I have an end date of like how fast I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to, it's kind of like a sprint. You're going to take a little break, recover. I could do 2 or 3 months of just going really hard, and then after that I'm going to be like, okay, I need to like reflect. And so I think just learning how you work, I would encourage people, know how you work. I know one friend who's like, I get going at 7 p.m. From 7 p.m. to midnight I work really hard. So then maybe do that. Don't. I wake up at 4 or 5. So
wow, that's early.
I just can't, like, I honestly, so I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning. I thought, let me just try to go back to sleep. I literally sat in the bed for 2 hours, and I was like, I try, but I was like, I should just get up and get to work. So everyone's different though.
What time do you go to sleep?
Like 10:30.
So that's kind of your time. Yeah. So it's finding the balance. It's finding what works for you in different aspects. I mean, I normally go to sleep between 12 and 1, and I get up around 6 in the morning. And
that's good.
I'm not a morning person, so even sometimes 6 or even 6:30 or 7 is like I'm hurting. Yet I said, I'm gonna do it though. But you know what? Two things to that I'm going to say that I like. Based on what you were talking about, I always talk about you have to review, rehearse, and revise. Right? Whatever it is that you're doing, review, rehearse, and revise. Right? And just keep doing it and doing it and doing that, because whatever you're putting out is not perfect. And you talked about, my course is not the best, and maybe that is, is not the best course it is. Yet, I heard this from my mentor, which makes perfect sense. It's like the software company or a lot of them, like if you look at Microsoft, or you look at, the different iPhones, they put out crap 1.0, and then before you know, they put out crap 2.0, or in other words, Windows 98, Windows 2000, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, it's never going to be right. Put something out. Don't be afraid to be perfect, because you're never going to reach that perfection level. I don't think you do. You're going to reach a point where you feel comfortable with something, and then put out crap 2.0, whatever that might be, right? Because you're going to continue to enhance it. You're going to continue to grow. You're going to continue to really expand on that. So anyways, I love that. Put out better content and just continue to put something out, So, so that's good. So talk about your course, like for the parents, homeschool from the heart. What is that all about?
Okay, so just to clarify, it's strictly for parents. It's not for kids.
Okay.
And even though it's called Homeschool from the Heart, it's really a parenting course that gives you the mental mindset to have fortitude to give your kids life skills, right?
Mm.
So there's a guy named Donald Miller. He is the maker of Story Brand, and basically it teaches you how to have clarity with your marketing. And so his idea is that all marketing should be a story. The story is basically that your customer or client is the hero of the story. You're providing them the opportunity to see what their issue is or what pain is, and then you're guiding them to the solution. And then at the end of the solution, they're the hero, not us. That's how we should parent. What kid wouldn't want to put on a cape, right? Why should we as parents want the cape to be on ourselves? We use our kids to validate us. We use our kids to make us feel better about ourselves when we actually shouldn't. That's number one. We make our kids feel like they're less than by making them feel annoying. We show up as hypocrites every day. They're the ones that know us the most. And we honestly, it's not about being perfect. Like you said, it's just about being honest about what's in the mirror. So the course is basically to help parents understand who they really are right now, to really just take true observation of that, and then look at how that, whatever that is mentoring, whether they want it to mentor or not, is mentoring to their kids, right? So if you're complaining during the pandemic and you really have nothing to complain about, that may be a time for you to look and reflect and say, how can I use this as a positive? How can I use this as a time to maybe have an apprenticeship with my kid? Maybe your kid is old enough to learn from you. And maybe it would be extra work, but you're giving your kid an internship while they're at home with you. You could be licensed to do that, right? Or you're giving them life skills. You're showing them how to cope with change, how to deal with things. So it's teaching parents first to deal with themselves. And then I do give practical ways on how to school. Like if you're into, like you have to homeschool multiple ages, you have to work from home. Maybe you have someone that's an essential worker in your family, you're working from home, you have multiple kids. So I'll give you the tools to be able to manage that and schedule. But the name of the game is autonomy. So I teach you how to use autonomy as a benefit. A lot of times we need permission to do things. You don't need anyone's permission. Even if you have a teacher that's telling you what should be handed in, you have full reign and freedom to figure out how your house should be ran in a way that provides sanity. So the end result for the parent is to get the results for their children, for themselves, and to have sanity and peace of mind in their home. And so we do that through working on their values, their beliefs, working on like their problem areas, the scenarios they may be experiencing, and working on that mentor-mentee relationship. As a parent, I don't have to always be right. I love when my kids call me out in a respectful manner. I love that accountability because we sometimes think as parents we have to know it all, and oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what if they don't know, and what, oh, they're asking me something that I don't know if we should talk about. It's all, just think of it as you're teaching your kid to put that cape on. Once they get that cape on, they never want to take it off. They
Hmm.
always want to have the responsibility of being a hero or a heroine. They want that. And you won't have to nag them to get things on or get their chores done or finish their work, because they will connect their identity to being a hero. I
Yeah.
mean, who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So that's really what the course is. And I mean, I think that um, it's really, it's a parenting course. I use the word homeschool because, everyone's homeschooling. And, but it really is to help parents realize you have an awesome job, and this is actually, there's benefits to actually being a mentor. So you actually become a better communicator. You become more sure of yourself. You learn how to manage and guide people. You actually sharpen your skills, and there's benefits for your actual job and income as you mentor your kids at home, whether you're doing it forever or accidentally or whatever, it doesn't matter. But this way of thinking could really be super beneficial for your kid. And at the end of the day, we all want our kids to do well and to have skills now that prepare them for life. Like, I love that you said that you have been working since you're 4. That has actually prepared you for right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? The other thing too with that is that again, I love the fact that this is for parents, because even when you go through something like what we're going through right now, and even if it wasn't this, yet you're spending the weekends or the afternoons with the kids, a lot of times we forget to be, we have the label of a parent, mom or dad, yet we forget to really be that mentor or that teacher. And we feel like, no, well, you went to school to get, so they can teach you whatever that might be. Yet when you bring that into your home place, and bringing those values and creating those things with your kids, it's actually so critical. Because even right now, I know, like, with people homeschooling, like, parents are going crazy because they don't know how to deal with that, right? you know they just don't know how to deal with that, and so they have to be able to see and find those ideas, like kind of what you have. They'll probably have would have saved themselves so much headaches if they would have gotten your program before this whole thing went on. Because again, now it's like, I know what to do, right? I know what kind of tools, what kind of teachings, how can I talk to my kids, how can I create that accountability, how can I create that relationship that
Right.
perhaps I don't have. And a lot of times, I believe that even with that, like, sometimes, you might lose your kid to, maybe even so, like in school, like, let's say a kid is getting bullied, right? And
Right.
sometimes you don't know that because you don't have that connection, their relationship, or they have bad influences, and then they get tempted, and you don't know about any of that because, again, you're too busy working, or you're too busy doing other things, that you forget to become that mentoring mentor person for your kids, right? So that
Right.
no, that's actually a pretty awesome program for parents. I think that's something that everybody should have, for sure. So
Woo-woo.
yeah, definitely. So now let me ask you this: what are
Yeah.
some life lessons, if you were to think of maybe 3 life lessons that you can think of from the time you were born to now? What are those 3 life lessons you've gone through?
I would say speak up, use your voice, don't be afraid. I think sometimes we think we have to say it perfectly, or that, there may be huge challenges. Even now on my podcast, there's people I don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with that. I would never do that.
Yeah,
But it's important for people to have a way to speak up, right? Because at the end of the day, I live in this world with them.
yeah.
And if they're not able to express themselves, or I'm not able to express myself, it becomes this, it will spiral out of control. You'll really end up doing something um you don't want to, you'll end up somewhere where you don't realize you're going to be. I think the second part is, like, to trust in your gifts and your abilities, right? Like, I didn't know, like, I remember when Kobe Bryant passed, like, I don't know if, like, how into sports you are, but it really resonated with me because that was the first time, as a, growing up as an African American girl, where I saw someone, and I know Jordan did this and there was other people, but it was in a frame of mind where I was becoming of age. I was becoming, a
Mm,
woman or whatever, where I realized that you could do things outside of basketball and people would listen to you. Like, he would be on shows, and I was able to process that. Like, he was creative and he could make money in other ways outside of his sport. And regardless of how people feel about him or whatever, it was very empowering for me. And then I think the other part was, um, so I didn't trust that as a kid. As an adult, I started to believe that that was possible, that you can make, money or monetize just being yourself and your gifts and your talents and what you're
mm,
truly interested in. So I would encourage people right now to really figure out what that is. It's not usually uncovering something new, I don't think. Sometimes I think it's just remembering, like, something old that you used to like, or that was really, and inspiring or empowering to you. Like, I always liked writing, right? And not until I, like, realized that you wrote a book, where I was like, that would be so amazing. And that's a change. That's how changing your environment, being around, see, you can overcome anything, right?
yes.
Like, I just think that that's really important, because you forget about that until you see lots of people doing that, and you're like, oh, I want some of that to rub off on me. Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say the third thing that I would say is, I've learned how to have, like, more empathy,
Mm,
because, growing up when you are constantly rejected, you feel the need to prove that you're right about something, and you forget as you learn to master things. Like if I'm reading, 100 books a year, in some ways I master certain things that someone else doesn't. And so you have to have empathy when people are weaker than you, and not be in a place that you want to beat your chest and make them look less than because maybe they rejected you. I'm not saying you should let people mistreat you, but I'm saying that you should really think about them and really assess if it's really necessary to be right all the time, and really forgive, right? Forgive people, because at the end of the day, there's things I didn't know that I didn't do right. Like if you looked at my track record, you're like, oh, you would say that? Well, I didn't know that, right? I didn't
Yeah.
know that that wasn't the right thing to say. And I also find that if you're able to forgive easily, you're able to access more success, because you overcome failures easily. You don't view failure as such a final thing. You wear it loosely, right? You think, oh, yeah, I did really terrible today, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I really usually just laugh at it. Sometimes they hurt when I try really hard, but
Yeah.
I don't view it that way. I just think like, okay, how can I get better at this? Because I've now given someone else grace and mercy in that area, and I've forgiven myself and I've forgiven them. And it actually isn't beneficial to put other people down, right?
Right.
Because one day you'll have to be put down.
Yeah.
And you're just setting yourself up for that. So I would say those are the lessons. What maybe helped me with that was when I became a parent, and I was like overwhelmed with just trying to be a good mom and be good at being a wife. Like, when you're married and you're like, okay, it's forever, and then you're like, wait, it's forever, how do I do that?
Yeah.
You kind of are like,
You're like,
so
where's the manual for this, right? Like, where's the marriage manual and the kids and right, exactly, yeah,
yeah, so I
yeah,
got angry that like someone didn't tell me, right? Like, that no one taught me, right? And instead I realized through talking that through with my parents and stuff, that they were giving no tools. They didn't even know that what a tool was, right?
mm,
They were giving no communication. And so they put me in a position to even know what that was. So it gave me being in that situation made me think, how do I want my kids to treat me when they realize I did something wrong, when they realize I tried really hard and I still fell short. And I wanted them to treat me with like love and grace and mercy, even though I had a huge amount of anger. But the anger really is just like low self-esteem and low self-confidence, like just not knowing you can do it. And once I changed the story saying, how can I be a good mom, not this is why I won't be one,
yeah,
then I felt more empowered to seek that answer.
mm,
Before I was reading the material in a way that made me feel like that means you're not going to be a good mom. See, because you
yeah,
didn't know that, right?
right,
And instead, the question allowed me to just seek that answer and learn. And I found, I'm not saying children's psychology books aren't helpful, but the best tools for me were business books,
mm,
because they taught a lot of, they process failure results very differently. And like I said, I quoted Story Brand for how to help. It's a marketing book on how to help my kid
mm,
um, wear their cape, because marketing is influence. And I thought, I want influence with my kid. I don't want to control them. I want them to come to me when they have a problem and want to tell me and want to see me as someone that could guide them and help them figure it out, not control them. And so I thought, I would love to guide them to become, Superman or Superwoman. Like, that's fantastic. And who would want to take that cape off?
yeah,
So all the
exactly,
responsibility that comes with that was freeing for me to say, whoa, if a sales pitch can figure it out, then I can figure it out.
right. Yeah, no, that's you definitely dropped a lot of good bombs right there. I mean, I got so many different nuggets there. So if you're not paying attention, you definitely need to do the replay on this, because you did talk a lot about great things in this three ideas, right? I would love to continue to go forever, and I think I can probably go forever. However, I do respect your time, so I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something, and you said, or I read something that says there's no time like the present, so start now. So you mentioned that. What does that mean to you?
That means just stop. Whatever is making you feel like you can't do it, whatever story that you're telling yourself, I call it the blank sheet of paper syndrome. Just take a blank sheet of paper and write what you want on there, draw what you want on there, put what you want on there, and just get to work. I was in a place in my heart and head where I was like stuck. I knew all the information. I had all the tools. I have all the supplies. I know how to put it together, but I just didn't, right? I was also in a place in my life where I didn't even know there were tools. I see everyone building, or you're like, I'm going to run a race, and you realize you're at the wrong location, that people have to sign up, you need money to register, and you have no money. You don't have the stuff. And you realize everyone's ahead of you. It's okay. Because at the end of the day, if you really, really, really get to know yourself, you're just competing against yourself. So I'm not competing against my daughter or my husband or social media or the influencers or the people that have this. I'm just competing against myself. And so I'm just taking my blank sheet of paper and putting what I want on there. And maybe it's just starting with that, right? But maybe you feel like, well, because of this happened or that happened, it just already happened. What are you going to do now? I know that's so hard for people because you want someone to agree that that person mistreated you, or that it is really bad that maybe you got laid off, or that, you've always been mistreated because you're too short, or you have a weird eye, it does a weird thing. So what? Okay, that's true, but that doesn't have to stop you from your future. I tell my kids, you lost that game against mommy. Mommy's really good at board games, but you can win. I don't apologize for winning. I want to win. I am going to enjoy winning, but you can come back and win. And I say, what are you going to do? How can you beat mommy? What are you going to do? So get back up and get back in the race, right? Get back in the fight, get back in the ring. And I think that's what I mean by start now. It's just all of those things are so true, and they can really serve as validation for why you shouldn't do it. But honestly, when you see that how easily you can have a coloring book and you're just filling it in, or you can take a blank sheet of paper or a drawing book and it's full of blank pages and you can just write something beautiful, right? You mess up, get a new book. So what?
Right.
I mess up literally in the middle of my diet, in the middle of the day, and I just say, just start again right now, girl.
Yeah.
Don't wait till next week. Just start again. Okay, you didn't eat that. Okay, what are you going to eat now to make it healthier day? So, that means giving yourself grace and mercy, right?
Yeah.
And if no one's ever done that for you, be the first one to do that for yourself.
Oh, no, I love that. Two things to that. Number one, I believe that what you just mentioned is there's nobody else you're competing against, just yourself, right? And I don't know who mentioned this, but it's so true. At the end of the day, if you're married or not, or you have a domestic partner, whatever the case may be, when you go to sleep, you might have somebody sleeping right next to you. Yet at the end of the day, though, you're sleeping by yourself. That person can be dead asleep, and you're still awake. You're sleeping by yourself. Like inside of you is only you, right? And so even when you have a relationship, you have a marriage, you have whatever the case may be, is you. And I always say, the person you have to impress is when you wake up in the morning and you look at that mirror and you say, you know what, you're my competition. I actually do something every day before I go to sleep and every day when I wake up. And it was hard, believe me, it was really hard doing this to begin with. But now I'm good at it. I look at myself in the mirror and I do three things. Number one, I said, Cesar Espino, I love you. Cesar Espino, I thank you. And Cesar Espino, I appreciate you. Because sometimes we're waiting for somebody else's appreciation or that love. Like, do it to yourself. Like, look at yourself in the mirror and just do it. Now, I'm telling you, it is weird doing that at the beginning. You look at yourself in the mirror, I'm like, what do what kind of crap are you telling yourself, right? Except it is powerful because, man, I'll smile and I'm like, yep, you got this, kind of thing. So anyways, I think that's very powerful. And I already forgot my second point. But nevertheless, it's so good. It'll come back to me in a second. Where can people find you if people wanted to connect with you?
Okay, so I am really old soul inside. The best way to find me is to email me if you really need me and you want to connect, which is Myla, Myla, at mylasweet.com. And that's sweet, like SWEET, sweet tea or coffee. But you can find me on social media, which is Myla Sweet. You can find my Myla Sweet podcast on all the podcast platforms. And you can buy the course at mylasweet.thinkific.com. And if that's too complicated, just send me an email.
Yeah.
Please don't send me a Facebook message right now, because I'm not on there enough.
Yeah.
So if you really need to get in contact with me, that's the best way. You can also just search my name, and like my real estate information will come up if you need something of that sort. But yeah, that's the best way, because I respond really quickly to that.
Awesome. All right. And then you've given us a lot of great tips. So let's see if you can give us one more. If somebody's going through some sort of challenge right now, whatever the challenge may be, what would be your advice so they can overcome that challenge?
I would say, I love this analogy. This is what works for me. There's two that work for me. Sometimes I imagine I'm in a cave when I wake up in the morning, and that the only way to get out the cave is to kill a bear or whatever's in my way. And so I have to get up and I have to take care of it. That's the only way I'm going to survive. So that might be too harsh for some people that like really need a hug or a cuddle, because I'm very intense. Sometimes that's what's going to get me out and kill my workout, and just tackle the day. I like to think of it as a light switch. A lot of times for lights or a faucet switch, we just expect it to come on, right? So if there's anything in your life that you expect to come on, you really want to automate your response to challenge like that. So if I'm struggling with, I'm struggling with, when I first started with Corona, I was struggling with, all my business was face to face. I would see people at a park or soccer field or whatever, and I would connect with people that way, very good at being chatty and that. And so it was like, oh no, you have to get online. You're not on social media. I don't know how to use it. All these hurdles. And then I just said, how can I respond? Just switch on and say, instead of saying, I can't do this, this is too hard, you don't know, blah, blah, blah. I thought, what skill do you have that would translate really well? And I thought talking. And then I just looked, what's the easiest way to talk? Podcasting. And that was my way to, my light switch to get onto social media. So now I have a reason, I have someone to connect with, I have something to learn. I get to feel that connection that I would feel out in the field. So I would say, if you're having a challenge, liken that challenge to a light switch and think, what's going to make me turn this on automatically? Not, I can't turn it on, it's not going to work, they called and told me that the bills are going to be, the lights are going to get cut off. Forget all of that. What's going to make you keep them on? What's going to make you respond? Like when I wake up in the morning, I usually assume the light switch is going to work, right? Maybe it's lighting a candle if your lights are off, but you assume that when you put the match to the candle, it's going to come on. How can you automate that? What's going to be an incentive for you? And I really think when you understand yourself, like I have a friend who says that she's lazy. I don't say that, she says that. And she wanted to learn how to budget. So I was like, hey, just use cash. And she was like, well, I don't do lists. I don't do any of these things. I said, you're lazy. Just use cash. I won't give you a list. You won't have to coupon. You don't have to digitize anything. Just do what you normally do, but leave $200 in the car. I was like, but you can go back and get it anytime. Just don't take the $200 in. She saved $900 her first month grocery shopping.
Wow.
Too lazy to go back to the car to go get it. Sometimes we just need to use what we know about ourselves. It's okay. If you know you like ice cream, put it in the shed or something. You know what I mean? Like, just make it a little bit harder for you to get distracted so that you can turn on that switch. So I would just say, figure out what would be the right incentive. So for me, the right incentive for social media wasn't, marketing or money. It was more just like connecting with someone. And so that's how I used it to be able to keep moving forward. And I think we can all attack our challenges that way. So if it's mental, I would say you have to work out your brain though. And the best food for brain is reading, writing, doing something creative, and reflecting. One tip before we go is, if you reflect for 10 days, it can increase your results. Just reflecting, just thinking about what you're doing, by 23%. Now, another statistic is 20% of all of our efforts drive 80% of our results. So if in 10 days you reflect, you can increase what your efforts by or results by 23%, and if it was the right 20%, you can get an 80% return on those efforts. And that's it. I mean, how many 10-day cycles do we have in a year? You have lots of time just sitting and thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it. So I would say, if you don't know, the first thing I do is think about it. Not put a period at it, put a question. Why? How? Why do I feel like that? Why is this a challenge for me? Not, this is a challenge, period. The brain loves to solve things that end with a question mark. So let yourself solve it. And with objectivity, like don't try to create the solution or assume the solution. Allow yourself to discover the solution. And I think that like I wouldn't have assumed that it was podcasting. I just tried to solve it with a question.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Definitely focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, and have the right programs going into your head instead of the negative programs. So no, that's awesome. Myla, I really have had a really great time with you today. Thank you so much for giving us so much value. Before I let you go, anything else before I let you go?
I think I want to encourage people to believe that like tomorrow can be better. You know, I think I want to, so for every negative thought, it takes 17 positive or hopeful thoughts to get you back at 0. And I just want to encourage people to seek out those things that are good or that are true, because we're not always getting access to what's true, right? We don't get access to all information at once. And I also want to encourage people to put the right boundaries to protect themselves. You're worth protecting. You're valuable. So don't just allow anyone access to your time. Your attention is the most valuable asset in the world. So if you have someone's attention, value that. If you are giving your attention to something, pay attention to that, because your thoughts, predict your emotions and then your behavior, and you'll end up somewhere that you don't realize that you're going, and you probably don't want to be there. So right now, all the time we have that's slowing things down, take advantage of that and build something beautiful. Next year, you could be looking at this and thinking, I'm so glad I did that. Not, I can't believe this happened. That's one story I can tell myself. But you can also tell yourself, I'm so glad I put my head down, I was super focused, and I made something beautiful happen for me, my friends, my family, my mom, whomever, right? So just don't, if we're looking for someone to be the solution, we can actually provide that for our neighborhood, for our community. And I think it is a impact, right? I think small businesses are gonna be what pull us out of this. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So and that starts with one person. That's a small business owner,
That's it.
right?
That's it. Yeah, definitely. Myla, thank you so much for being here at the show today. I really appreciate it.
This was amazing. I honestly feel like my nerves, like I was like, am I gonna be sweating profusely? So I wasn't sweating, guys.
That's awesome.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, Cesar.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, check us out at all platforms on our podcast. And please make sure you come here and you drop some comments. I want to hear your feedback. Definitely looking forward to reading those comments. So please make sure you come back and do that. Share with everybody. Till next time, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.